I'm with the Contra Costa Small Business Development Center. We're a nonprofit agency. Our headquarters in Pleasant Hill, but we do a lot of work with the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. The purpose is to help create jobs by encouraging people to start a small business, or if they're already in a small business, to expand. We offer consulting services. We've got about 8 consultants on board. All of them are like me. We're all in private practice. We've all had successful businesses. And we provide this advice free to anybody in the county that wants it. There's no charge. If you were to be a private pay client of a marketing consultant, for instance, you'd probably pay $150 an hour, but we offer the same services for free to small businesses. So you can either go online to sign up for it, or you can drop by the chamber office, and they have a way to input the forms to get you on our database, and then a consultant will contact you. We also offer classes in small business in various subjects, and those are given around the county in different areas. Some of them are free, some of them there's a modest charge for. So I'll be around. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. If I don't have the answer to a question, I'll make something up. But please feel free to approach me on it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. So our loan fund actually uses Randy. I think we have 2 or 3 meetings with you thus far, and it's been very, very helpful and free. So I couldn't recommend him more highly. Thank you.
Well, as you know, co-ops are nothing new. They've been around for years and years and years and years and years. Ask Randy, he knows. The difference is the financial and economic climate that we deal with today. I know when I got here a year ago, I started studying different businesses, small businesses, co-ops, and had a chance to go through some of the struggles. While everyone's excited to have a co-op, to get together, to be unified and grow together and have ownership and democracy in a business, at the same time, real life happens. People are struggling to pay their mortgages, people are struggling to go through school. And then with some, it's just that, you know, they take that energy and they just continue to create. We know about in-kind, donations, putting your time, using resources, putting all that in there. But one thing is when you're ready to take out a small business loan, sometimes there's just not that thing that expresses in our financial nomenclature what the people that are giving the loans want. And that is sometimes there's equity or the fact that everyone's democratically organized. There's no one person that has some liability. One good thing about being a part of the Richmond Co-op loans is we have a different way of supporting our local community and doing social good, and that is by offering something to businesses who have excellent ideas, who have the capacity to perform but may not meet the traditional financial criteria. And I am excited about it because after working with some of the cooperatives here in Richmond, that's a much needed thing. I remember one night I was working for, it was such a struggle, and the product was so wonderful. Somebody came to me and said, you know what, we're struggling, we can't get a loan. And they picked me and a couple other people and said, hey, if we all put in 50 bucks, get this project done, I'll give your 50 bucks back to you plus a little more. We all did it, and that project was able to work. Now, that's just about like $150, $200, $300. But $2,000 to $20,000 is something that is useful for just getting a start. And the good thing about it is when you start with some of these smaller loans, you don't have to deal with a lot of debt coming in the door. So that's one thing that I'm really excited to be a part of Richmond Co-op loans, because that is what we're looking for. We are looking for people that have a capacity to do well, have the capacity to grow, and that just need a little extra resource to get going. I didn't speak much about myself. My background is working with very, very, very large businesses. Some of the, like Oracle, IBM, AT&T, those types of companies. But as I was going through college, I worked for small businesses, and I saw how small businesses were able to grow after the recession during the 80s because of the Small Business Administration. So the small business, this is another cycle of an economic downturn, an emerging business model, small business, and some type of support system that allows those small businesses to grow, like Nike, which they got a small business loan just to be where they are today. So I just want to encourage everyone, and if, like he said, Terry said, there's plenty of information out of there, and if you want to know what happened in 1905, ask Terry, he knows. He was there.
One of the biggest boosters for co-ops in the Bay Area is right here to my left. I'm there.
Thank you, Terry. I'm delighted that this is getting started. You know, I went to, I guess I always knew about co-ops, you know, growing up and knowing about those kind of consumer co-ops were more that what I was familiar with in terms of people being, you know, being a part of a co-op grocery store where they're part of a customer base. I knew a little bit about worker-owned co-ops from the 60s and 70s where they were very small. But when I went to Mondragon in 2010, I went on a trip with various people from around the country, including Marilyn Langlois, who's now on the board here, and was in my office at the time as a staff person. So we had a wonderful and enriching trip. And I learned there more deeply about the importance of co-ops. And I learned how it is a truly alternative and a really important alternative economic strategy. Not only does it bring about and create the jobs that we know we need in Richmond, you know, we know we have a high unemployment rate and we need job creation, but we know there's more than jobs that people need. I mean, yes, you need that money from your job to put food on your plate and clothes on your back and you know, pay your rent and all that. But we also have other needs as human beings. We have needs for empowerment and feeling like we have a decision-making role in our lives and you know, in our society. And workplace democracy is one of the things that co-ops have to offer. People are making their decisions collectively. So this is a really big thing. I think sometimes we narrow in on the need for jobs too exclusively, and we forget the fact that human beings have more needs than jobs. So the need for empowerment through decision making is what co-ops offer, as well as job creation. And then it offers a third thing, and that's something we need so much in Richmond, and that's local wealth building, local economic wealth building. Because people who work and own their businesses in Richmond, live in Richmond, spend their money in Richmond. So it really develops a local economy, and that's what we really want to grow here. And we already have the seeds of you know, wonderful businesses, you know, individually owned businesses, some sole proprietors, but this is another opportunity to get people working together to help the economy of Richmond. And that's how it happened in Mondragon. People really started small with just, you know, a few people starting a few co-ops here and there, and it grew. And this was all because of the promotion and the advocation of a wonderful priest back in the 50s who had his parish in Mondragon, Spain. And his name was Father Arizmendi, and he, you know, got the whole co-op movement going in Mondragon. And now there's a network of co-ops that are under the umbrella of the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation, and it's like 100+ co-ops. And collectively, this co-op corporation, if you will, not under the same understanding as some of us have of corporations being these domineering, aggressive, profiteering for their CEOs, et cetera's benefit. But, you know, a corporation where everybody has a decision-making role. Well, they have become the 7th wealthiest business in Spain. Now that's pretty amazing. We don't know that in the U.S., that this co-op collective in Mondragon has, you know, hundreds, I don't know, 100,000 jobs, I think, something like that, yeah, are associated with the co-op corporation in Mondragon. And it's the 7th wealthiest business in Spain. So we have an opportunity. What we learned in Mondragon is what starts the co-op movement. What starts it is need. We have the need in Richmond. So all of this wonderful, so just to get, I wanted to preface it with that, but just to get back on why it's so important to launch this loan fund, this revolving loan fund, because we need to help people start co-ops. So this is an opportunity to have some seed money and to have those who are, on their way, who have a business plan, to get some seed money and to help us grow that co-op movement in Richmond. We're already on our way. We have the Liberty Ship Cafe. We have, other co-ops in the making, and people, putting their heads together to think through how they want, urban agriculture, bike co-ops, all these kind of things are in the making. So I'm going to end there and say, in case you haven't noticed, I am very enthused about the co-op movement in Richmond. And thank you all for also being enthused.
So if we don't end up with many co-ops in Richmond, it's our own damn fault. It's not for lack of Gail's enthusiasm. So as Stephanie implied, our board of directors for this loan fund tries to model cooperative principles, including diversity. So she pointed out that they accept old people on this board. But we're so accepting we even accept lawyers. So our next speaker will be Neil Helfman.
And as one of the old people, I need to have my glasses. Often ignored in the discussion about cooperatives is the fact that they provide tangible business benefits and advantages. And one of the first is what the mayor just addressed, and that is job creation. It allows people to take their economic destiny in their own hands. And I think if we've learned anything in the last 4 years is you don't find jobs, you better create them. Because the jobs that are out there are few and far between, and under circumstances that people may not want to accept. Now, it's not easy. It's not easy creating your own business. In fact, it's actually more difficult to be a cooperative member than to be either an employee or to be an employer, because you got to be both. But it can be done, and we have living examples of it. We have Terry and Wayne are both members of cooperatives, long-standing cooperatives. We have other cooperatives in the Bay Areas that have shown real financial viability. Alvarado Street Bakery, for instance, my understanding is that their wage package is, wage and benefit package is 3 times industry standards. I understand from Terry that your cooperative was paying out patronage dividends from the very beginning. Right. So there was profit sharing from the very beginning. So it's something that's difficult, but it is doable. One of the disadvantages, unfortunately, of cooperatives is because they're employee-owned and operated, is they're poor vehicles for investment. So the type of money that has to be provided is either through internal sources or through some type of loan fund, and hopefully we're going to deal with that deficit, and that's the purpose of our organization. A cooperative is also, that's number one. Number two is what I would call economic viability, and that is, a cooperative can thrive in environments where other businesses can't, because a cooperative is already providing an economic benefit to its members if it provides them with a livelihood, if it provides them a salary. So if it doesn't make a profit, it's doing fine, because it's giving them that objective. If it provides them a profit, all the better. But you can't say the same thing in a non-cooperative business. People who do not participate in the actual business and have nothing more than a return investment will not do so if the best they can do is break even. Right. Whereas in a cooperative, you can break even as long as you want, because the people will have their economic needs that will be satisfied. So it allows them to thrive in environments where other businesses can't. Number three, cooperatives are competitive in the open market. And let's assume all things are equal. We have 2 businesses. They make the same product, they have the same revenue, the same expenses. One's a cooperative and one's not. To the extent the non-cooperative business has to pay out its earnings to people who are not involved in the production of the activities, in other words, pure investors, the cooperatives have an advantage, because they could use whatever that margin is to either lower their price, to pay their workers a higher wage, or any combination of both to whatever degree they want to. And if they want to be price competitive, they can do it that way as well. So it allows them the means to do so, because they do not have to satisfy, but they do not have to pay out from the money they receive, money to investors who are not involved in the production of the products. 4. And this is where it gets a little tricky, but members can finance their internal expansion, their internal financial needs, through retained earnings without incurring a current tax liability. This all goes back, cooperatives are controlled by subchapter T of the Internal Revenue Code, which is actually, I think, somewhat of a blessing. It was one of President Kennedy's best pieces of legislature. And without getting too deep in the weeds, what it allows people to, what cooperative members can do, is that the patronage dividends, which is allocated to whatever portion, is agreed upon, it can be retained within the cooperative in internal capital accounts and paid back during a redemption period. So when the money is paid back, the cooperative, at that time, the cooperative will take a deduction, and then the member will have to pay personal taxes, but you can defer that amount for several years and still use that money to build up the business. Keep in mind, under subchapter T, that all patronage distributions are deductible. So theoretically, if you have a cooperative that is made just of members, let's say you don't have employees in addition, and everything is distributed on patronage dividends basis, you can escape corporate tax liability entirely. That was number 4. Number 5 is what I call economic relevancy. Because in cooperatives, members receive benefits. Again, this is in regards to subchapter T, and for those who are counting, it's section 1381 of the Internal Revenue Code Exec. What happens in a cooperative is people get paid for what they do instead of what they own. Now, in a non-cooperative business, people's benefits are based upon, their economic benefits is based upon their paid-in capital. And there's many times, in cooperatives, not all sizes fit the same business. So there may be situations where cooperative is the best choice or cooperative is not the best choice. A business that requires a high capital risk, probably a cooperative is not a good choice. But in a business where the development is more dependent upon the sweat equity, the ingenuity, the business organization of the business, a cooperative may be a very good choice. And I'll give you just kind of an example. It may be a bit extreme, but it's one I recall reading in the newspaper, that there were some young kids who formed a t-shirt business. They invested a couple $1,000, and within 4 or 5 years, the business was doing over, 6 figures in business. Now, how relevant is that $2,000 or $3,000 that each paid in 2 years ago if the business expansion is due to all the effort and sweat equity people put into it? So what cooperatives do is they correct this deficit, and people get paid on an annual basis on the basis of their patronage instead of on the basis of some economic event that may have very little bearing to the present economic circumstances of the business. And lastly, a cooperative, when we talk about democratic control, one of the things that means is that all major decisions must be made by the membership. So for instance, if you have a corporation or a partnership in maybe one or a small group of people has a majority control of the business through their equity ownership, they could do a lot of things. They can sell the business, they could transfer to someone who's hostile, they could even dissolve the business. You can't do that with a cooperative. For any of those things to happen, you have to have a majority membership vote. So it cannot be undercut, it cannot be taken away from you. Members have control of their business. The economic benefits, by the way, are not the only reasons people go into cooperatives. I mean, there's other things as well. You may want to create your own workplace environment. It may be more compatible with your economic needs, with your personal values, excuse me. But let's face it, a cooperative is a business. Unless you run it as a business and you satisfies people economic needs, then it's just a hobby. And we don't have the luxury for that. So I think what cooperatives provide is a very efficient vehicle to allow businesses to build themselves up from the ground up. And once they're in that position, once they're in a position of positive cash flow, they have very distinct advantages over other businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to do one thing on vocabulary. There might be people in the room, probably are people in the room, who've never heard the term patronage refund. before. Basically, it's like profit sharing. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's giving back to people each year in relationship to the work that they did. So it's not a straight percentage. It's usually like tied to the number of hours they worked or however they participated in the business. It's the profits are prorated and sent back, or as Neil was saying, are set aside in a retained earnings kind of an account so that you can use for expansion of the business.
Hi, this is great. I love this. I've wanted to spread the idea of co-ops as much as I could, and Richmond is fair game, great place for it. But the board of directors asked me here to speak about my personal experience in a grocery store that I'm a co-owner of. It's a cooperative grocery store in San Francisco called Other Avenues Food Store Cooperative. In fact, the salsa there is something that we sell in-house, so check it out. But I make. Yes, that's true. Actually, I made that batch. Good. Anyway, yeah, a couple key things that I think about or that I note as I'm doing my work. I've actually been a part of that for 10 years. That store has existed for about 37 years now. There's about 25 co-owners who work probably slightly less than 40 hours each on the average. We broke $4 million in sales this year, and we probably have the best profit this year that we've ever had in our history. So, so it's possible to thrive as a co-op, and that's been a gradual process, obviously. But just to give a couple pieces, it's really nice to feel like you can be of service in your work, that your work can be a service to the community, and that you can go to work and feel like you're doing good by everyone that you interact with. So the workers there receive wages, receive a cool place to work, a good place to work, benefits, full health benefits. Then our customers are really key. It's really, obviously they're our bread and butter, they're our lifeblood, but it's constantly interactive with the customers. They constantly tell us things, and we ask them, how is this for you? What do you think? And they love the fact that we're a worker cooperative. People come to us even when it's, more trouble for them. They will come because we're a co-op. Because we have this model. So there's a community service aspect to it. There's constantly, it being a grocery store, and with vitamins, there's education about food, organics, genetically modified foods and trying to avoid them, and so forth. There's a lot of education that goes on, and we all think in terms of being stewards of something, of an institution, something that's been around for a long time, that ought to be around maybe perpetually. Providing this food distribution service in the neighborhood where it is in the outer sunset of San Francisco. Yeah, the wages feel it's oriented towards a living wage, and there's a feeling like you have say in your life and in your work. And after I've been both a business owner and an employee in various situations during my work life, and it's just I like being an owner and but not sharing all the burden of it. So it's really nice to have partners who you can genuinely discuss. There's no vying with each other. There's no competition. We think together about how to succeed, and we do. So one other thing to note about co-ops is that there can be, at least if you're running the business well, there can be better job security there. You are not likely to be laid off. Even during recessions, like the last recession, the co-ops did something that some for-profit businesses did, which is you have to shrink your wages sometimes in order to stay afloat, in order to keep everyone employed, but it preserves the employment, and the business doesn't go away. The service is still being provided, and after the recession is done, you continue growing again. Having economic democracy, just having democracy all day long is something really different than feeling like you don't have any control over your day during the week. The co-ops in the area, there's actually there's a local co-op association, the network of Bay Area worker cooperatives. There's about 40 cooperative businesses that are part of that in the SF Bay Area. It's a total of 1,000 workers, all different industries. I think there's 3 grocery stores, of which we're one. And they're operating locally, bringing money into the Bay Area, and being good corporate citizens because the people who are running them live here, and the consequences of their actions would happen to those very people. So there's no absentee. It's not someone who lives far away and then who has a business here and then forgets about the consequences of its actions. It's direct to us. So we think about that. We think about what we're doing differently. And the last thing I'll just mention is that a lot of the co-ops, including us, are oriented towards sustainability, are certified green businesses, and are just kind of at the cutting edge. So I think those are the main things I wanted to mention, just to feel like the really different kind of workplace, and it's really valuable, and it also provides for Richmond. I think it can provide an economic growth and betterment vehicle. So,
Thank you.
The other group that provided food for us is Liberty Ship Cafe / Fusion, Latina Fusion. And I think Foresta is going to give us a little update on what they're up to these days.
Hi. Hi. So I work with Liberty Ship Cafe, which is these women back here who are dressed as Rosie the Riveter. And actually they do most of the work, except that they make me come up and talk when it involves public speaking. So it started out at the farmer's market, and a lot of you probably saw the stand that was at the farmer's market for a while. Now we're doing catering relatively recently. We're working really, really hard. It's really, really hard to start a business. And it's also really hard to organize a cooperative because communication is really important, and democratic decision making is, you don't just go in and say how it's done. You have to have a structure for how you make decisions, and the co-op has to come up with that structure. There are examples of how to do it, but each co-op comes up with their own ways of doing it and their own communication skills, and so we're working on that now. Let's see. Yeah, any questions about Liberty Ship Cafe?
Can you tell us what the entrees are?
I wasn't in the kitchen today, so could one of you guys tell us about it?
Yeah, today is, I think it's goat cheese empanadas and raspberries, fruit skewers, and I think it's our veggie sandwich with hummus.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think that's all. And it's viscous tea.
Food's delicious.
Yeah, try the food. So we've been doing a lot of catering. The catering is going great. People are working really hard. Alejandra is amazing at marketing, and it's just like our sales have been really going up. And yeah.
Oh, well, I was gonna wait till after you finished the
I was
statement.
rambling, so.
Oh, okay, perfect time.
Yeah.
How did you agree on your structure? For voting on things or making decisions?
We're working through that. That's the interesting thing about starting a business is you just have so many day-to-day things you have to do that you end up sometimes pushing that kind of stuff gets, moved back. So we have been voting on it, voting on things democratically. We really need to put that in writing and say, are we going to do it, 51% gets it, or are we going to say 2/3% or 2/3 of a majority? Or are we going to say consensus? In a small cooperative, consensus is really popular and I think is really healthy as well. But like I say, you have all these steps of ideas of how you're going to, implement the cooperative, and then suddenly you have 5 orders that you have to do, and so these things.
You fit it in when you can.
Yeah, you fit it in when you can, and we're getting there. I'll get back to you on it.